Today we get to talk about my favorite books of 2024. This is just the video where I gush for however long. So grab your coffee and get ready to squeal with me about some books. I'm so excited. I unfortunately did not have as many 5 stars, as many favorites of the year as I wanted to. Again, we're bringing a different energy into 2025. However, the books that I did give 5 stars, I really loved, and I'm so excited to be chatting with you guys today about all of these books. So first and foremost, let's talk about a couple of honorable mentions. One that made it on the list from Booktuber favorites last year, it was one of Lexi's favorites, is Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent. This is a thriller slash literary horror that is just so gut-punching. It's so hard to read in places, but also fascinating. It doesn't really have a lot of twists and turns, and it's about Sally and kind of her life and how she grew up and how it has affected her as an adult. It doesn't sound like it would be overly entertaining, but it's such an interesting read. I had so much fun with this one. And then we had Butcher and Blackbird, which I was not expecting to be on an honorable mentions this year, but this book has stuck with me. It is a romantic dark comedy where we have 2 people that bond over killing together, and it is unhinged. It has some of the craziest scenes that were just like, oh my goodness, incredible, and it just really stuck with me, so I wanted to get it on this list. Then we have Court of Blood and Bindings by Lizette Marshall. This is one that I debated whether to put on the list because it's not one that just like really sticks with me. I didn't love the second and third books in the series. However, this first one I had so much fun reading. The banter was good. I was giggling, kicking my feet while reading this, and I just felt like it needed to at least go on the honorable mentions. This one has a really unique magic system because it is color magic and you draw color out of things to create different kinds of magic. And we also have the silent death. He cannot speak, and when he kills, nobody makes a sound, and she has been now taken by him. I just really enjoyed this book overall, so I just wanted to mention it. And last but not least is one that I debated moving to my favorites of the year. I'm not gonna lie, when I read this, I was not in the absolute best of headspaces. I was being very critical because of the time when I read it, and it has stuck with me so much since then, and that is Slaying the Shadow Prince by Helen Scher. This book, the banter, the world building, the relationships between everybody, just absolutely incredible. Shadow Daddy, sword wielding lady, and I cannot recommend this book enough. This is in the world of the Legends of Thesmar series. I read it before reading Blood and Steel. You can also read it after book 2, I believe. I have read book 2, haven't read book 3, but I don't personally have a strong opinion either way. This is probably the strongest book so far that I've read in the series though. So good. And the spice was great. Okay, so those are the 4 honorable mentions. Let's move into the 7 books that are going to make it on my best of the year. These are not in any real particular order. Like, I tried to number them, but I'm not, like, I can't really put numbers in first spots in most of these. So coming in toward the bottom is going to be Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. Yet another one that really, I mean, like, I don't know where some of these books are coming from. Honestly, they're not what I would look at that and go, that's a Mel book, and this is certainly not a Mel book, but I loved it so much. It is speculative, it is kind of weird, it is ambiguous. It's about this group of kids that are making a horror movie, but that's not all that they're doing, and I don't really know how to explain this book, but there's nothing about it that should have made it a favorite for me, yet I got it. I got what Paul Tremblay was trying to do, and I just ate the story up. There were some scenes in this book with fingers that will never leave my brain, and so it just had to make it on the best of the year because, like, I can never get that out of my head. It can't happen. Then one that I actually don't own yet because I'm hoping I'm gonna start collecting the regular editions, but I also want to get the Fairy Loot Romantasy editions, and I'm hoping that they finish them. So Fairy Loot, if you're watching this, please finish the Beast of Briars series by Elizabeth Helen. Forged by Malice is the 3rd book in the series, and that is what's going to make it officially on this list, but the series as a whole is absolutely included. I loved this series this year. I read Bonded by Thorns at like the perfect time. Again, doesn't really feel like it should be a me book. It is a why choose. It is Polly, although I'm learning that I really like that. It's fairy tale-esque. It was written more whimsical in the beginning, but I ate the story up. The relationships between all of these characters, it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, I should probably mention that. But the relationships between all of these characters is just done so impeccably well. A lot of times in Why Choose, I feel like I don't really see all of the men having their own personality. They just kind of exist to be with the female. But in this one, Rosie has a relationship with all of them, but then they have relationships with one another. And like some of these scenes break my heart. Like literally screaming, crying in Forged by Malice. My baby Day went through it, and Cass is incredible. Like I cannot scream at you enough to please pick up this series if you haven't already. Even if you don't think it's gonna be your thing, even if you're like, unless you just really don't like Why Choose or really don't like Holly, then please pick this book up. Please just try it, because it is so much fun in so many ways, but also so deep and heart-wrenching in so many ways. And I just know that Broken by Daylight is going to rip my soul out, chew it up, and hand it back to me. Like, it's going to happen. I just know it. Next up, we have Lady of Darkness, and most of the series is kind of on this list, but primarily this first one. I actually haven't read book 5 yet. I think this book has some really, really good banter in it, and that is what in this first one really gripped me and had me by the throat, was some of the knife to the throat scenes, the training scenes, the sniping between her and Riker just really, really got me. This one's following Scarlet, and she is one of the 3 Maidens of Death, and she has a new job, a new guy that she is supposed to murder, and she needs to be in the castle to do it. That's really all I'm going to tell you. This is more like, it's a fantasy romance, but think of it as having like a big arching plot. Like the romance is definitely there, and it's definitely a very, very big part of the story. Not to the point that I would call it a fantasy. It's definitely more prominent than that, but this one is more of a plot-driven romantasy, but the banter in this is where I just fell head over heels for it. I loved the plot and the magic system as well. I flew, like literally flew through this book. I read books 2 and 3 pretty close to this one, but when I went to read book 4, I think I needed to have binged this series, so I'm giving myself a little bit of distance before reading book 5, but I adored this book so much. I had so much fun reading it with my patrons. We were squealing the whole time. It was a great time. Then we have another horror that made it on this list, and if you haven't heard me scream about it yet, you're about to, and that is Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. Matches my shirt. It's a great time. This book I have not stopped thinking about since I finished it. I closed it and was like, that was incredible, going on the best of the year list. This is about a guy, and he is a show writer slash director of a really popular horror series, but he's told that his gay characters either have to not be gay anymore or they have to die for the drama. He is determined not to let that happen, but things from his shows start coming to life and coming after him, and he's trying to figure out what is going on with that. And this book, just, there was something about it. It was so fun. It really talked about some heavy topics, but did it in such a way that was just engaging and not beat you over the head with it. It was just a great time. It was a little meta. It didn't take itself too seriously, but also it took itself very, very seriously. I don't know, but I had so much fun with this. I think it did what it did extremely well. I have not read Camp Damascus yet, so I can't compare the two, but if you have not picked up this book yet and you are even a slightest bit of a horror reader, I strongly encourage you to do so, because this was incredible. We're down to our top 3 books, and I loved these books. I love these books so much. The first one we're going to talk about, I don't like this cover. I really want to get the newer cover, but I keep hoping somebody will put out a special edition, because I don't love either cover for these books. That's Quicksilver by Callie Hart. This was one that I just heard people talking about, and I was like, that sounds interesting. Cassie was reading it. I was like, I'll buddy read it with you guys, not really knowing what it was and not really expecting too much out of it. And when I say this book had me in a chokehold, I read it in one day. I don't think it was quite one sitting. I did take a couple of breaks, but like I sat down and pretty much binged this entire like 600-page book in one day. That's how much of it had me in a chokehold. Fisher, oh, so good. I think this is following Saris, I want to say is her name. I'm very bad with names, but she lives in a city where water is rationed. It's a desert. Everything is kind of to crap, and she's trying to take care of herself and her brother. She steals something from a king's guard, gets herself in a lot of trouble, trying to get away from death, and accidentally touches a sword that opens a portal into a fairy realm. And she ends up kind of in the middle of all of this. We have Kingfisher, who is slowly going crazy crazy because he didn't have enough protection when he was going through the portals or Quicksilver, and now they're taking over his mind, and it just had some of my favorite tropes of all time in it. I mean, the voice in the head trope is like candy to me. If it has that in there, I'm automatically like, yes, give me. The banter in this I had so much fun with. There was a animal companion that had my whole heart. There was some great like side characters. Carrion was one of my favorite characters in this. He was incredible, absolutely incredible. The ending, wild, fast-paced. Like, I cannot tell you guys enough about how much you need to read this book. If you are a romantasy girly and you like a really solid plot and world building, pick this book up. Pick it up right now. Pick it up. Okay, down to the final two, and I think these are my top two favorite books of the year. I'm trying to decide what order they go in. I think I'm gonna go with number 2 being the duology as a whole, but I definitely liked the second book the best. That is City of Mirth and Malice by Alexis Elminard. This duology, Nico and Kami, incredible. I can't ask for a better couple. Like, I absolutely adored the relationship in Quicksilver. I thought it was great, but this one, the plot, the world, the magic definitely shone for me. In this one, yes, the setting was really cool. We have like a steampunky lamplight train situation, but the relationship, Nico and Camellia, incredible. And chef's kiss incredible. Their banter from page 1 was absolutely like ate it up like candy. The way they interact, and they always have each other's backs, but also like they don't just become this sappy romantic couple that doesn't know how to have a good time. Like, they're still griping and sniping at one another, flirting, and it's just so incredible. Basically, the first book in this series has Camilla, and she is the heiress to a fortune, the train fortune, but things are slowly not going as they should, and they need somebody to basically bail them out of debt. She agrees to marry a guy, but she really doesn't want to, so she escapes one day just to have one more night of freedom, meets Nico with his metal arm, and he decides that he is going to step in and make her an offer that she cannot refuse. So it has the arranged marriage trope. There are gods and different types of powers that come with gods and remnants in this that I think is really interesting. This duology follows these two couples, and then I know that the series is going to continue with different couples in the next duology, which is not out yet, but this couple has my whole heart. 10 out of 10, incredible, amazing. If you love banter and you want a different kind of fantasy world, you need to read this. And the last book that I have to talk to you guys about is a series that I thought I wasn't going to continue, if we're being completely honest. I read the first book and gave it a high 2, low 3 star. It was fine, but I just did not understand the hype. Then I read book 2, I understood the hype, and I read book 3, and it destroyed me. I have literally said I will give Pinkole my pinky finger if she will give me burn, because I need to know what's going to happen next, and that's Heat of the Everflame by Pinkole. This series, the fact that I read this 1,000-page, I think it's over 1,000 pages. How many pages is it? Oh no, this copy is 761 pages, but the ebook I think is over 1,000 pages. Either way, I devoured it in like 2 or 3 days. I went through this so fast. It had me in such a chokehold. Like, this series is following a DM, and DM in the first book is kind of dumb. Like, she was not my favorite character. She is a healer, and we have the Descended who kind of live up in their castle. They don't really want anything to do with the humans. They're kind of separate demigod type race, and they have magic where the humans don't. She is a human healer, and she doesn't really appreciate the fact that they are so separate. They don't want anything to do with the humans. They can't have any romantic relationships with them, and she doesn't really fit in, she feels like. When her mother goes missing and she has to take her place and ends up as the healer in the castle. And the first book just really does not have a lot of romance in it, but when we hit the romance in the second and third books, when I tell you that Luther is my everything, like, oh my gosh, some of the things that he said to her and some of the stuff, like especially involving kids and her saying, you know, I just want to be my own person. That's not something I'm looking for right now. I understand if you don't want to be with me, and kind of how he responds to all of that hit me really hard this year, and I just cannot get over this book. It ends on a massive cliffhanger, and I want to tell you to like read this right now to to like shove it at you and tell you that you need to pick it up, but we don't have a release date for Burn, and it ends on such a big cliffhanger that I'm like hesitant to say pick it up right now, but also like you got a lot of pages to get through, so maybe you should just pick it up right now. So good, so incredible. Like I feel like I'm not making sense on half these books. I barely told you what any of them were about, but it's just because they're so good that like it doesn't matter what they're about. You just need to read them. You just need to pick them up. Okay, so those are all of my best books of 2024. Here is to an even better year in 2025. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I really want to know what your best book of the year was. Please leave it down in the comments for me. Gush about it, scream about it, make me want to pick it up. If you don't have a best book of the year, or you just want to let me know that you were here and hanging out, leave me a flame for Heat of the Everflame. As always, thank you guys so very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!